The crystal being's body flickered with colors of fear and desperation. Ambassador Cather stood in the center of the great communication chamber, her translucent form casting rainbow patterns on the metal walls around her. Her world of Vexar had been peaceful for 10,000 years, but now everything was ending. Send the message again, she told the technician at the control panel, broadcasted on every frequency we know. The technician, a small furry creature from the forest world of Melonia, worked his clawed fingers over the controls, his ears drooped with sadness. Ambassador, we have sent it 47 times. Already no one is answering. Kathra looked through the great window at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there the Zephyrian Empire was moving closer. They had already destroyed 12 peaceful worlds. In the past year, their massive warships left nothing but ash and empty space. Behind them, someone has to hear us. She whispered, her voice made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The galaxy cannot end like this. The message had been simple. The Council of Peaceful Worlds needed help. They offered everything they had to any species that would stand with them. Against the Zephyrians, their own ships were built for exploration and trade, not war. Their weapons were meant to clear asteroids from shipping lanes, not fight battles. 3 days ago, they had received the final warning from Admiral Vexstack of the Zaffiran fleet: surrender now and serve us or be destroyed like the others. The message had come with images of burning cities and empty planets. The Zephyrians took what they wanted and killed everything else. Dr. Velith entered the chamber, her long legs carrying her tall, thin body with grace. She came from a world where gravity was weak and her people had grown tall and delicate over millions of years. Any response to our signal, she asked. Nothing, Kithra replied. The nearest species that might help us are too far away. Andromedans might come, but they would take months to reach us. We have days, maybe hours. Dr. Velith's large eyes filled with tears that sparkled like diamonds. Then we die as free beings. At least there is honor in that. Far across the galaxy, in a part of space no one from the Council had ever explored. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the UES Endeavor. The ship was humanity's first attempt at deep space exploration beyond their home system. They had been traveling for 8 months, looking for any sign that Earth was not alone in the universe. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Navigator Lisa Brooks studied star charts at her station, marking their position as they moved through the void. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole was below decks, making sure their new faster-than-light drive kept working properly. They were further from Earth than any human had ever traveled. Captain, said communications specialist Tony Martinez from his station. I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors. Morrison sat up straighter. What kind of something? It's a signal, very faint, but it's clearly artificial. Someone is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Tony's fingers danced over his controls, trying to clean up the signal. Sir, I think this might be what we've been looking for. Dr. Susan Parker came onto the bridge from the medical bay where she had been running routine health checks on the crew. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick hands. Did I hear correctly? We found something. Morrison nodded. Tony, can you clean up that signal for the next hour? Tony worked with the ship's computer to decode the alien Transmission. The mathematics were different, but mathematics worked the same way everywhere in the universe. Slowly, words began to form. To any sentient species receiving this transmission, we are the last beacon of freedom in our galaxy. We seek aid from those who value liberty and justice. We offer what little we have in exchange for help against the Zapirian menace. The bridge fell silent. Lisa Brooks was the first to speak. My God, they're asking for help. The message continued. With more details, the Council of Peaceful Worlds was facing destruction by an empire that had already wiped out dozens of civilizations. They were desperate. They were dying. They were calling out to anyone who might listen. Morrison looked at his crew. What do you think? Ryan Cole had come up from engineering when he heard about the signal. He was a big man with steady hands and a mind that could solve any technical problem. Captain, we're just one ship. What could we possibly do against an entire empire? Dr. Parker crossed her arms. We can't just ignore this. These people are facing genocide. Lisa Brooks pulled up a star chart. The signal is coming from about 2 weeks away at maximum speed. We could reach them, but getting back to Earth would take months. Tony Martinez looked up from his station. Captain, there's more to the signal. They're sending technical data about their enemy. The Zephyrians sound like bad news, but he paused, studying the information. Their military tactics are pretty basic. All brute force, no subtlety. Morrison stood up and walked to the main viewing screen where stars stretched out in all directions. Humanity had wondered for centuries if they were alone. Now they knew they were not. Somewhere in the darkness, peaceful people were dying while crying out for help. How long until we could contact Earth? He asked Lisa. At this distance, 3 days. For a message to reach home, 3 days for a reply. That's if we can punch a signal through all this cosmic interference. Morrison thought about Earth's history. Humans had always fought against those who would destroy the innocent. It was part of who they were. Sometimes they failed, but they never stopped trying. Send a message to Earth Command, he decided. Tell them what we found, but we're not waiting for orders. Set course for the signal source. Dr. Parker smiled. You think we can help them? I don't know, Morrison admitted, but we're going to try. That's what humans do. As the UES Endeavour changed course toward the alien signal, none of the crew could imagine what they were heading into. They had no idea that the galaxy was full of species that had never known real hardship. They did not know that most intelligent life had evolved on gentle worlds with kind weather and no dangerous animals. They certainly could not guess that their home planet Earth would be seen as a nightmare world where only the strongest and most adaptable could survive. To the crew of the Endeavour, Earth was just home. It was the only world they knew. Back in Council space, Ambassador Cathra felt her crystal body growing dim with despair. The Zephyrian fleet would arrive in less than 48 hours. No one had answered their call for help. The peaceful species of the galaxy were about to learn that sometimes peace was not enough. Keep broadcasting, she told the technician, until the very end. Keep sending the signal. She did not know that her desperate message had already been heard. She did not know that help was coming from the one part of the galaxy no civilized species had ever explored. She did not know that the answer to her prayers was traveling through space at maximum speed, crewed by beings from a world so dangerous that it had forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. The UES Endeavour raced through the void, carrying humanity toward its first contact with alien life. None of them knew they were about to become the most feared and respected species in the galaxy. They only knew that someone needed help and they were going to provide it. Thay's message from the Council continued to broadcast into the darkness, but it was no longer unanswered. The Deathworlders were coming. The UES Endeavour dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of an enormous refugee fleet. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the viewing screen in amazement. Hundreds of alien ships drifted in space, all different shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant flowers made of metal, others were long and thin like needles. A few seemed to be made entirely of crystal that caught the light from nearby stars. "My God," whispered Navigator Lisa Brooks. "Look at them all." The alien ships were beautiful, but they were clearly not built for war. Their hulls were smooth and decorated with artistic patterns. Morrison could see no weapons, no armor plating, no signs that these people had ever expected to fight anyone. Communications specialist Tony Martinez worked at his station trying to establish contact. "Captain, I'm getting dozens of different signals. They're all talking at once. Can you understand any of it?" Morrison asked. "The computer is working on it. Their mathematics seems similar to ours, so translation should be possible." Tony paused, listening to his headphones. "Sir, I think they're scared." "Really? Scared?" A new voice came through the speakers, speaking in accented but clear English. "Unknown vessel, please identify yourself. Are you with the Zapperian Empire?" Morrison stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Endeavour. We received your distress signal and came to help. We are not with any empire." There was a long silence, then the voice returned, filled with confusion. "United Earth, we have no record of this species in our databases. What system are you from?" "The Sol system. Earth is our home planet, about 2 weeks' travel from here." Another pause, longer this time. Morrison could hear excited voices talking in the background, but he could not understand their words. "Captain Morrison, this is Ambassador Cather of the Council of Peaceful Worlds. Would you be willing to come aboard our flagship for a meeting? We are desperate for any help." Chief Engineer Ryan Cole looked concerned. "Captain, we don't know anything about these aliens. It could be dangerous." Dr. Susan Parker checked her medical scanner. "I'm reading hundreds of different life signs on those ships. The diversity is incredible. Some are oxygen breathers like us, others use completely different gases." Morrison made his decision. "Ambassador Cathara, we accept your invitation. Please send us docking instructions." 2 hours later, Morrison, Dr. Parker, and Tony Martinez stood in the airlock of the alien flagship. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the Endeavour. The walls were covered in patterns that seemed to move and change colors. The 2 airlock opened with a soft hiss. Morrison stepped through and immediately noticed that the gravity was much lighter than on Earth. He felt like he could jump twice as high with no effort. The first alien he saw made him stop and stare. Ambassador Cather was made of living crystal that reflected light in every direction. She was about 7 feet tall and moved with a flowing grace that seemed almost like dancing. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "Welcome aboard, Captain Morrison. Thank you for coming so far to help us." Behind her stood Dr. Velith, a tall, thin being with skin that looked like it was made of silver. Her arms and legs were so long and delicate that Morrison worried they might break if she moved too quickly. Her eyes were huge and filled with intelligence. "Fascinating," Dr. Velith said, studying the humans with scientific interest. "You are much more compact and dense than we expected. What is the gravity on your home world?" Dr. Parker answered before Morrison could. "About 9.8 ms squared. What's yours?" Dr. Velith's large eyes grew even wider. "That is nearly 3 times what most of us consider normal. How do you survive in such conditions?" Morrison was confused by the question. "It's just normal for us. Earth gravity isn't that strong." Several more aliens entered the chamber, all different species. One looked like a large insect with 4 arms and compound eyes. Another was covered in soft fur and had a tail that twitched nervously. A third seemed to be made of some kind of flexible metal that shifted and flowed as it moved. All of them stared at the humans with expressions that Morrison was beginning to recognize as fear. The insect-like being spoke in a clicking voice that the translation system turned into words. "These creatures come from a high-gravity world. Look at their bone structure. Look at how their muscles are built. They are incredibly strong by galactic standards." Tony Martinez looked uncomfortable. "Is that bad?" Ambassador Cather tried to make her voice sound welcoming, but Morrison could hear the nervousness underneath. "Not bad, just unexpected. Most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on what you might call garden worlds, gentle climates, stable weather, few dangerous animals." Dr. Parker pulled out a tablet showing pictures of Earth. "Would you like to see our home world?" She started with images of Earth's beauty: mountains covered in snow, oceans stretching to the horizon, forests filled with green trees. The aliens seemed impressed until Dr. Parker showed them a thunderstorm. Dr. Velith stepped backward in shock. "What is that?" "Just a storm," Dr. Parker said. "They're pretty common on Earth. Those lightning bolts could kill most of our species instantly," whispered the furry alien. "And your people live through storms like that regularly?" Morrison was starting to understand. "Are you saying your worlds don't have dangerous weather?" The metal being flowed closer, its form shifting as it moved. "Captain, the deadliest weather phenomenon on my home world is what you might call a light breeze. That storm you just showed us would destroy our civilization." Dr. Parker scrolled to more images. Volcano erupting in the distance, hurricane seen from space, an earthquake that had cracked a road. With each picture, the aliens moved further away from the humans. "You live on a death world," Dr. Velith said quietly. "A planet that kills everything weak or unprepared. Only the strongest and most adaptable species could survive there." Tony Martinez laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Deathworld, Earth is beautiful. Sure, it can be dangerous sometimes, but that's just nature." The laughter made several aliens flinch. Morrison realized that what humans considered normal, these peaceful species saw as terrifying. Ambassador Cather tried to change the subject. "Tell us about your military. What kind of weapons do your ships carry?" Morrison described the Endeavor's basic defensive systems: kinetic barriers, point defense lasers, electronic warfare capabilities, simple things that Earth's military had developed over centuries of warfare. The aliens looked at each other with growing amazement and fear. "You have systems designed specifically for deception?" asked the insect being. "You can make enemy sensors show false information." "Of course," Morrison said. "It's basic military doctrine: confuse the enemy, hit them where they don't expect it, use their own strength against them." Dr. Velith was taking notes on a device that looked like it was made of living light. "These concepts are completely unknown to us. We have never needed to develop such things." "What do you mean?" Dr. Parker asked. Ambassador Cather's crystal form dimmed with sadness. "For millions of years the galaxy has been at peace. When conflicts arose, we solved them through negotiation and compromise. We never learned to fight because we never needed to fight." Morrison began to understand the scope of the problem. "Until they Xerians, yes, they came from outside our galaxy, already equipped for war. Their ships are built to destroy and conquer. They don't negotiate, they don't show mercy, they simply take what they want." The insect being clicked nervously. "We tried to reason with them. We offered them trade agreements, cultural exchanges, anything they might want. They laughed at us and began destroying our worlds." Morrison felt a familiar anger building inside him. Throughout human history, bullies had always targeted the weak and peaceful, but humans had never been willing to let bullies win without a fight. "How long until they arrive here?" he asked. "Less than 2 days," Ambassador Cathara replied. "Our scouts report that their main fleet is already moving toward this system." Morrison looked at his crew. Dr. Parker nodded grimly. Tony Martinez cracked his knuckles, a sound that made several aliens jump. These peaceful species needed protection, and humans knew how to protect people. "We're going to help you," Morrison announced, "but you need to understand something. We're not like you. Where we come from, everything is trying to kill you from the moment you're born. We learn to fight back." Dr. Velith stared at him with her enormous eyes. "You would risk your lives for strangers?" Morrison smiled, and the expression seemed to frighten the aliens even more than his earlier descriptions of Earth's dangers. "Lady, that's what humans do." The alarm sirens on the Council flagship wailed through the corridors like dying animals. Captain Jake Morrison rushed to the bridge with Dr. Susan Parker and Tony Martinez close behind him. The peaceful aliens moved in panic, their graceful movements turning clumsy with fear. Ambassador Cather's crystal body flickered rapidly between red and orange, colors that Morrison was learning meant extreme distress. "They are here sooner than we expected," she said, her musical voice now sharp with terror. "The Zephyrian fleet has just dropped out of faster than light travel." Morrison looked at the main viewing screen and felt his breath catch. The enemy fleet was massive beyond anything he had imagined. Hundreds of dark ships hung in space like a swarm of metal insects. Each ship was at least 3 times larger than the biggest vessel in the Council fleet. Dr. Velith worked frantically at a control station, her long silver fingers dancing over alien controls. "Admiral Vextek is broadcasting on all frequencies," she reported. "He demands immediate surrender of all Council forces." The main screen changed to show the Interior of the Zethurian flagship. Admiral Vextac stood in the center of a dark bridge surrounded by his officers. He was tall and broad with gray skin, covered in natural armor plating. His eyes glowed red in the dim light. And when he spoke, Morrison could see rows of sharp teeth. People of the council. Vextax's voice boomed through the speakers. You have 30 minutes to surrender your ships and prepare for transport to labor camps. Any vessel that attempts to flee will be destroyed immediately. The alien officers around Vextac looked similar to their leader but smaller. They wore black uniforms covered in spikes and carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Their ship's bridge was designed to intimidate, with sharp edges everywhere and screens showing the destruction of other worlds. Morrison studied the enemy broadcast carefully. As a human military officer, he had been trained to analyze opponents and look for weaknesses. What he saw surprised him. "Tony," he said quietly to Martinez, "are you recording this?" "Every second." "Captain, good. I want to study their formation when the transmission ends." Dr. Parker moved closer to Morrison. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking these Zahirians might not be as tough as they look." Ambassador Cather heard him and turned with confusion. "Captain, they have destroyed 12 worlds. How can they not be tough?" Morrison pointed at the viewing screen. "Look at how they're positioned. Every ship is in a perfect line, all facing the same direction. No scouts out on the flanks, no reserve force held back in case something goes wrong. They're arranged like they're on parade, not like they're expecting a fight." The furry alien that Morrison had met earlier approached them nervously. "I am Engineer Bix from the world Melonia," he said. "What do you mean about their positioning?" "They've never fought anyone who fought back," Morrison explained. "Look at their formation. It's designed for intimidation, not for battle. They expect you to surrender as soon as you see them." Dr. Velith looked up from her station. "But Captain, they have superior numbers and firepower. What does formation matter against such odds?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Everything matters in a fight, Tony. Can you get detailed scans of their ships?" Tony Martinez worked at his portable equipment that he had brought from the Endeavor. "I'm getting good readings, Captain. Their ships are big, but" he paused, studying the data. "Sir, their design is really strange." "How so?" "They're built for straight line attacks. All their weapons point forward. They have almost no defense on their sides or rear, and their shields seem to be focused on protecting against energy weapons, not physical projectiles." Morrison felt the familiar excitement that came with solving a tactical problem. "What about their engines?" "Powerful, but not very maneuverable. These ships are built to move in straight lines and overwhelm enemies with raw firepower." Dr. Parker was studying her medical scanner, which she had modified to analyze the biological data from the Zapirian transmission. "Jake, you need to see this. I'm reading their life signs from the broadcast." She showed him the scanner display. "These aliens are actually quite fragile. Their bone density is lower than most humans. Their muscle mass is minimal. I think they evolved on a world with very low gravity and no major threats." Morrison looked back at the viewing screen where Admiral Vextac was still making his demands. The Zafran leader stood perfectly straight and still, never moving unnecessarily. His officers stood in neat rows behind him, all at exactly the same angle. They're like robots, Morrison realized. Everything is precise and predictable. Engineer Bix's ears perked up with interest. What do you mean, Captain? Watch how they move. Everything is done the same way every time. No improvisation, no adaptation. They follow a script. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole's voice came through Morrison's communicator. He had returned to the endeavor to analyze the Zapirian ships. From there, Captain, I've been scanning their fleet. For the past 20 minutes, I found something interesting. What is it, Ryan? Their shield generators are all synchronized. Every ship in the fleet is running the same shield frequency. If someone could disrupt that frequency, their entire fleet would be vulnerable at the same time. Morrison felt pieces of a plan beginning to form in his mind. What about their weapons? Powerful energy beams, but they have a long charging time between shots. And, Captain, here's the really interesting part. Their communication system is completely unencrypted. Tony Martinez looked up with excitement. No encryption at all, none. Ryan confirmed. It's like they've never considered that an enemy might try to listen in on their communications or jam their signals. Ambassador Cathara moved closer to the humans, her crystal form now flickering with colors Morrison had not seen before. You speak as if you can defeat them, she said with wonder. How is this possible? Morrison looked around at the alien officers surrounding him. They were all staring at him and his crew with expressions of hope mixed with disbelief, because they've never fought anyone like us, Morrison said simply. They've conquered 12 worlds, but what kind of worlds were they? Dr. Velith consulted her records. Garden worlds. All of them peaceful civilizations with no military experience. That's what I thought. They've never encountered real resistance. They show up, make threats, and everyone surrenders. They've gotten soft. Engineer Bix's tail twitched with nervous energy. But Captain, even if they are predictable, they still have hundreds of ships. Dr. Parker checked her scanner again. Jake, I'm detecting something else about their biology. Their stress hormone levels are very low. I don't think they're used to dealing with unexpected situations. Morrison nodded. That makes sense. Everything in their military is based on overwhelming force and intimidation. They probably haven't had to actually fight a battle in decades. The 30 in U deadline Admiral Vextak had given was almost up. The Zephyrian fleet began moving into attack formation, but even their attack pattern was predictable. They formed perfect lines and moved forward slowly, giving their enemies time to see their power and surrender. Captain, Tony said urgently. They're charging weapons. Morrison looked at Ambassador Cathra. How many ships do you have that can still fight? Perhaps 30 vessels with any kind of weapons at all. But they are designed for clearing space debris, not for battle. That might be enough, Morrison said, but I need to know something. Are you willing to trust us completely? Are you willing to follow human tactics, even if they seem strange or dangerous to you? The crystal being looked around at her fellow council members. The insect-like alien clicked nervously. Engineer Bix's ears drooped with fear. Dr. Velith's large eyes were wide with terror, but Ambassador Cather stood straighter, and her body began to glow with a steady blue light. Captain Morrison, we called out to the unknown for help. You answered that call. We will trust you. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. these peaceful beings were putting there. Lives in his hands, they had no experience with war, no understanding of tactics, no knowledge of how to fight back against bullies, but they had something the Zapparans did not expect. They had humans. All right, Morrison said, here's what we're going to do. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the council war room, surrounded by alien officers who had never planned a battle in their lives. The room itself showed how unprepared they were for war. The walls were covered with star charts for trade routes, not battle maps. The computers were designed to calculate shipping schedules, not weapon trajectories. First thing we need to understand, Morrison began, is that we're not going to fight them the way they expect. Ambassador Keith's crystal form flickered with confused colors. What do you mean, Captain? Morrison pointed to the display showing the Zapparan fleet. They're expecting you to either surrender or meet them in a traditional space battle. We're going to do neither. Dr. Velith raised one of her long, thin arms. But Captain, we only have 30 ships. With any weapons at all, they have over 400. Numbers don't always matter, Morrison said. What matters is using your advantages and exploiting their weaknesses. Tony Martinez had been working at his equipment, analyzing the Zahirian communications. Captain, I've been listening to their chatter. They're already celebrating their victory. They think this will be over in minutes. Good, Morrison said. Overconfidence is a weakness we can use. Engineer Bix's furry ears twitched nervously. How can their confidence help us, Doctor? Susan Parker answered before Morrison could, because confident enemies don't prepare for surprises. They don't watch their backs. They don't expect the unexpected. Morrison nodded. Dr. Parker is right. Now here's what we're going to do. He moved to the star chart display and began pointing to different areas. See this asteroid field about 6 million km. From here, the aliens looked at the chart. The asteroid field was marked in red as a navigation hazard. Ships normally avoided it because the floating rocks made space travel dangerous. We're going to use that asteroid field as our battlefield, Morrison announced. Every alien in the room looked horrified. Dr. Velith spoke for all of them. Captain, that field is extremely dangerous. The asteroids move unpredictably. Our ships could be destroyed just trying to navigate through it. Morrison smiled. Exactly. That's why the Zapparians will never expect us to fight there. They avoid dangerous environments because they've never had to learn how to handle them. But we haven't learned either, Engineer Bix protested. No, but we're about to. Morrison said. Tony, how long would it take you to hack into their communication system? Tony Martinez grinned. With no encryption, maybe 20 minutes. These guys have never heard of information security. Morrison turned to the alien officers. On Earth we have something called electronic warfare. We use computers to attack enemy computers. We can make their sensors show false information. We can jam their communications. We can even take control of their systems if we're good enough. The insect-like officer clicked rapidly, which the translator turned into excited speech. You can make their own technology work against them. That's the idea, Morrison confirmed. But that's just the beginning. Dr. Parker, tell them about your biological warfare idea. Dr. Parker pulled out her medical scanner. I've been analyzing the Zaphirian life signs. They come from a Very clean world with almost no bacteria or viruses. Their immune systems are extremely weak compared to most life forms. What does that mean? Ambassador Cather asked. It means that common bacteria from any of your worlds could make them very sick, Dr. Parker explained. We could introduce harmless microorganisms into their air systems. They would become ill and unable to fight effectively. The aliens looked shocked. Engineer Bix's tail stopped twitching. You want to make them sick on purpose? Morrison saw the moral conflict on their faces. I know it sounds harsh, but remember what they've done. 12 worlds destroyed. Billions of innocent people killed. Sometimes you have to fight dirty too. Protect the innocent. Dr. Velith was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded. Slowly, you are right, Captain. We cannot let them destroy more worlds because we are afraid to use effective methods. Now for the main battle plan. Morrison continued. He moved to the tactical display and began drawing lines and arrows. The Zafarans will follow us into the asteroid field because they're arrogant. They think they're superior. Numbers guarantee victory, but once they're in the field, their formation will be broken up by the asteroids. They won't be able to maintain their perfect lines. Their ships will have to spread out and maneuver independently. Tony Martinez understood immediately. And that's when we hit them with the electronic warfare, jam their communication so they can't coordinate with each other. Exactly, Morrison said. Confused and isolated, they'll be much easier targets. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole's voice came through the communicator from the Endeavor. Captain, I've been working on modifications for the Council ships. I can install some basic point defense systems and improve their shield harmonics. Morrison activated the communicator so everyone could hear. What kind of improvements? Ryan, I can reprogram their shields to cycle through different frequencies randomly. That will make it much harder for the Zafarans to target them effectively, and I can install kinetic projectile launchers using their asteroid mining equipment. Engineer Bix perked up with interest. Our mining equipment could be used as weapons. Absolutely, Ryan replied. You use magnetic accelerators to launch mining charges at asteroids. We can modify those to launch solid projectiles at enemy ships. The Zafarans have never seen kinetic weapons before. Their shields aren't designed to stop them. Morrison felt the plan coming together. In his mind, here's how it will work. We retreat toward the asteroid field, making the Zapirians think we're running away in panic. They'll follow us because they want to finish this quickly. Once we're deep in the field, Tony jams their communications and sensors. Dr. Parker releases bacteria into their air systems through their own ventilation. Ryan's modifications let our ships hit them with weapons they can't defend against. Ambassador Kitha's crystal body began glowing brighter, and the asteroids will break up their formation so they cannot use their superior numbers effectively. That's right, Morrison said, but there's one more element to this plan. We need to make them angry. Angry, Dr. Velith asked. Why would we want to anger them? Dr. Parker answered. Angry people make mistakes. They stop thinking clearly and start acting on emotion. Morrison nodded. I'm going to talk to Admiral Vextac directly. I'm going to tell him exactly what we think of bullies who attack peaceful people. I'm going to make him so mad that he'll chase us Anywhere, even into the most dangerous asteroid field in the system, Tony Martinez was already working on establishing a communication link. Captain, I can patch you through to their flagship anytime you're ready. Morrison looked around the room at the alien officers. These peaceful beings were about to learn what humans meant by total warfare. They were about to see what happened when someone threatened the innocent in front of people from a death world. Are you all ready for this? Morrison asked. Engineer Bick stood straighter, his furry body trembling slightly, but his voice steady. Captain, our people are dying. We will do whatever is necessary. Dr. Velith moved to her station with graceful determination. I will prepare the biological agents, the insect-like officer clicked rapidly. I will coordinate with Engineer Cole on the weapon modifications. Ambassador Cathara's crystal form blazed with brilliant blue light. Captain Morrison, show these Zahirian bullies what happens when they threaten the people under human protection. Morrison felt a fierce pride in these aliens. They might be peaceful by nature, but when their friends and families were threatened, they could find the courage to fight back. Tony, open a channel to Admiral Vextek. Channel open, Captain. Morrison's voice carried across space to the Zaffiran flagship, and every word was carefully chosen to make the enemy commander furious. Admiral Vextek, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Endeavor. I have a message for you and your fleet of cowards. Admiral Vexto's face filled the viewing screen, his red eyes blazing with fury. The Zaffiran commander's gray skin had darkened too, almost black with rage. Behind him, his officers shifted nervously as they watched their leader lose control. You dare insult the Zaffiran Empire? Vexek roared. I will personally tear you apart with my bare hands. Captain Jake Morrison stood calmly in front of the camera, his voice steady and cold. You're nothing but a bully who picks on defenseless people. Where I come from, we have a special place for bullies like you. Your pathetic little ship will be the first thing I destroy. Vextak screamed. Then I will hunt down your home world and burn it to ash. Morrison smiled, and the expression seemed to make the Zahirian even angrier. You're welcome to try, Admiral, but first you'll have to catch us. The communication ended. Morrison turned to Ambassador Cathura, whose crystal body was flickering rapidly with amazement. Did you just make the most dangerous military commander in the galaxy lose his temper on purpose? That was the idea. Morrison replied. Tony, are you reading? Increased engine activity from there. Fleet Communications Specialist Tony Martinez checked his sensors. Yes, sir. All Zaffiran ships are moving to attack formation. They're coming in fast and angry. Perfect. All Council ships begin retreat toward the asteroid field. Make it look like we're running scared. The Council fleet began moving away from the approaching Zaffirans. The alien ships were not built for speed, but they moved steadily toward the dangerous asteroid field that all civilized species avoided. Chief Engineer Ryan Cole reported from the Endeavor. Captain, the modifications are complete. Council ships now have kinetic projectile launchers and randomized shield frequencies. Dr. Susan Parker was working at a biology station that the aliens had quickly set up for her. Bacterial agents are ready. I can introduce them into Zafirian life support systems as soon as Tony gets me access. Engineer Bix coordinated with his fellow technicians. Across the fleet, all ships report. Ready, Captain Morrison, though I must say we are all terrified. Morrison understood their fear. These peaceful beings had never fought a battle in their lives. Now they were about to face the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, using tactics that seemed like madness to them. Fear is normal, Morrison told them, but remember why we're fighting. Those ships behind us have destroyed 12 worlds. They've killed billions of innocent people. Today we make sure they never kill anyone again. The asteroid field loomed ahead of them, a maze of spinning rocks and debris that stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction. The Council ships entered the field carefully, using their superior maneuvering systems to weave between the floating mountains of stone and metal. Behind them, the Zapperian fleet followed without hesitation. Admiral Vextak was too angry to think clearly about the dangers. He wanted to destroy the humans who had insulted him, and he wanted to do it quickly. They're entering the field, Tony reported. Their formation is already starting to break up. Morrison watched the tactical display as the neat lines of Zaffirin ships began to spread out and separate. The asteroids forced them to maneuver individually instead of moving as a coordinated fleet. Now, Tony, hit them with everything you've got. Tony Martinez unleashed every piece of electronic warfare that human military science had developed. He jammed Zaffirin communications, blinded their sensors, and filled their computer systems with false information. The enemy fleet suddenly found themselves isolated and confused in a dangerous environment. Dr. Parker activated her biological weapons using back doors that Tony had created in the Zapperian computer systems. She introduced Earth bacteria into their life support systems. Within minutes, enemy crew members began falling ill as their weak immune systems tried to fight off organisms they had never encountered. The first Zaffirin ship to suffer a system failure crashed into a large asteroid. The impact tore the vessel apart, scattering debris across the battlefield. Admiral Vextak's furious voice came through the static fill communications. What is happening? Why can't I contact my ships? Because you've never fought anyone who fights back, Morrison replied on an open channel. Welcome to war, Admiral. Ryan Cole's modifications proved their worth as the first exchange of weapons fire began. The Zaffirin energy beam struck Council ship shields that flickered and changed frequency every few seconds. Most of the enemy shots were deflected harmlessly into space. Meanwhile, the Council ships launched their new kinetic projectiles. Solid chunks of metal, accelerated to incredible speed, struck Zaffirin hulls that had no defense against physical impacts. The enemy shields, designed only to stop energy weapons, were useless against the kinetic attacks. Engineer Bix's voice came through the communicator, filled with excitement and terror. Captain Morrison, it's working. Their shields cannot stop our projectiles. The battle raged through the asteroid field as hundreds of ships maneuvered around floating mountains of rock. Zaphirians, used to fighting in open space with perfect formations, struggled to adapt to the chaotic environment. Dr. Vale coordinated the Council ships with surprising skill. Her scientific mind quickly understood the tactical principles Morrison had taught them. Squadron 7, use Asteroid Cluster 42 as cover. Squadron 3, flank them from the Left while they're distracted, Morrison felt proud watching the peaceful aliens learn to fight. They might not have any experience with warfare, but they were intelligent and adaptable. More importantly, they were fighting to protect their homes and families. Admiral Vextak's flagship tried to bull its way through the asteroid field. Using brute force, the massive ship pushed aside smaller rocks and blasted larger ones with its main guns, but the constant maneuvering and impacts had damaged its hull, and the biological weapons were affecting his crew. Admiral, one of his officers, reported, "Weekly, half our crew is too sick to work. Our communications are still jammed. We cannot coordinate with the rest of the fleet." Vexed rage was now mixed with something he had never felt before in battle: fear. His perfect fleet was being torn apart by primitives, using tactics he did not understand. Morrison opened another communication channel. "Admiral Vextak, I'm offering you one chance to surrender. Order your ships to stand down and withdraw from Council space." "Never," Vextak roared, though his voice was weaker than before. "The Zethurian Empire does not surrender. Then you'll share the fate of all bullies." Morrison replied sadly, "Tony, Dr. Parker finished this." The final phase of the battle was swift and decisive. Tony Martinez gained complete control of the Zapirian computer systems, turning their own weapons against them. Dr. Parker's biological agents spread through their entire fleet, leaving most of the enemy crews too sick to fight. One by one, Zapiran ships began to surrender or retreat. Those that tried to continue fighting found themselves outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by Council vessels that fought with deadly precision under human guidance. Admiral Vextak's flagship was the last to fall, surrounded by Council ships and crippled by system failures. The great vessel finally powered down its weapons. "This is impossible," Vextak whispered, as Morrison's face appeared on his screen one final time. "We have conquered 50 worlds. We are the greatest military force in the galaxy." Morrison looked at the defeated admiral with something that might have been pity. "No, Admiral, you were bullies who had never met anyone willing to fight back. There's a difference. The battle was over. The Zephyrian fleet, what remained of it, limped away into deep space. They would never again threaten the peaceful worlds of the galaxy." Ambassador Cather stood beside Morrison on the bridge of the Council flagship. Her crystal body glowed with colors he had never seen before, patterns that somehow conveyed deep gratitude and wonder. "Captain Morrison, how can we ever thank you?" Morrison looked out at the stars where the Council ships were already beginning rescue operations for survivors from both sides of the battle. "Just remember that there are people in this galaxy who will always stand up to bullies. You called for help and we came. That's what neighbors do." Dr. Velith approached them, her large eyes bright with tears of relief. "What happens now?" Morrison smiled. "Now you rebuild. You help the refugees. You make sure this never happens again. And if you ever need help, you know where to find us." The galaxy had learned that peace was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the most unlikely allies came from the most dangerous places. Deathworlders had arrived when called, and they would remain as guardians of those who chose peace over conquest. Earth had found its place among the stars.